15 years I'd been hauling refrigerated freight between Chicago and the Twin Cities. Produce runs mostly, sometimes meat, the kind of work where you knew the route by heart, knew which rest stops had decent coffee, knew exactly how much you could push the rig before the fuel gauge started making you nervous. That was before the turbo blew outside Eau Claire. $3,000 to replace it. Maybe more, depending on what else the shop found once they cracked it open. I didn't have 3,000. Didn't have 1,500. I was already 2 months behind on the truck payment, 1 month behind on insurance, and the repair bills from the last breakdown were still sitting in a stack on my passenger seat with red stamps that said final notice. Aurora and I had split 8 months back. Clean break, she called it. She got the house in Rockford. I got the Kenworth and the debt that came with it. Seemed fair at the time. Now I wasn't so sure. She'd tried to be nice about it. Said we just wanted different things. Said the road was my real marriage and she was tired of being the side piece. Couldn't argue with that. Didn't try. We signed the papers at a lawyer's office that smelled like burnt coffee and furniture polish. Shook hands in the parking lot, and that was it. I thought about her sometimes when I was sitting at truck stops at 2 a.m, watching other drivers climb into their cabs to sleep. Wondered if she thought about me. Probably not. The turbo going out had put me in a hole I couldn't dig out of. I'd been taking whatever loads I could find, running harder than I should have, skipping maintenance I knew better than to skip. Desperation makes you stupid. That's what my old man used to say. He drove 30 years without a single accident, retired with his rig paid off and a pension from the Teamsters. I was about to lose everything at 44. I was parked at the Loves in Superior, Wisconsin, when the message came through. 11:30 in the morning. Cold enough that the wind came off the lake and cut right through the cab, even with the engine idling. I had the heat on full blast and I was still wearing my thermal hoodie and knit cap. My phone buzzed. I looked down at it. Karen Parsons, First Bank of Illinois. I didn't want to open it. Knew what it'd say. Opened it anyway. Mr. Nichols, this is your final notice before repossession proceedings begin. If payment is not received by end of business Friday, January 12th, the bank will reclaim the vehicle per the terms of your loan agreement. Please contact our office immediately to discuss payment options. Karen Parsons, Recovery Department. Friday. Today was Tuesday. 3 days. I sat there looking at the screen until my hands started going numb. Not from the cold, just numb. The kind of numb that spreads up from your fingertips when your brain stops knowing what to do with your body. The Kenworth was all I had. Lose the truck, lose the income. Lose the income, lose everything else. I'd be 44 years old with no assets, no job, and a credit score that'd keep me from renting anything better than a weekly motel room. I should have felt something. Panic, maybe. Anger. Mostly, I just felt tired. I made myself move because Gary had told me to meet someone inside at noon. Gary Hall. Freight broker out of Minneapolis. We'd worked together on and off for 5 years. He wasn't a friend exactly, but he wasn't not a friend either. The kind of guy who'd get you a load when you needed one and then ghost you for 3 months. He'd called me yesterday while I was sitting in a Perkins parking lot trying to make a cup of coffee last 2 hours. "Got something for you," he'd said. "Special job, good money." How good? Good enough you don't ask questions. That should have been a red flag. I knew that. But when you're staring down repossession in 3 days, red flags start looking like opportunities. "What's the freight?" I'd asked. "Recovery work. Client will explain when you meet him." "Where?" "Loves in Superior. Tomorrow noon. Ask for Tommy." "Tommy who?" "Just Tommy, he'll find you." Then Gary hung up. I'd spent the rest of yesterday and all of this morning telling myself I wouldn't go. Whatever Gary was setting up, it wasn't going to be clean work. You didn't meet clients at truck stops for clean work. You didn't avoid names and details for clean work. But I was out of options. So I pulled my cap down, zipped up my high-vis jacket, and walked across the lot toward the building. The wind off Superior hit me the second I stepped out of the cab. January in Wisconsin, 30 below with the wind chill. My breath came out in clouds and my eyes started watering before I made it halfway to the door. Inside smelled like diesel, fried food, and the industrial cleaner they used on the floors. A handful of drivers stood around the coffee station. A couple more sat in the booths near the windows staring at their phones. Nobody looked up when I walked in. I went to the counter. The clerk was a kid, maybe 20, with acne scars and a name tag that said Brandon. "Help you?" he asked. "Looking for Tommy." Brandon's expression didn't change. He pointed toward a hallway past the restrooms. "Office in the back. He's waiting." "Thanks." I walked past the bathrooms, past a storage closet, to a door at the end of the hall that didn't have a sign. Just a door. I knocked. "Come in," someone said. The office was smaller than a sleeper cab. Metal desk, 2 chairs, a filing cabinet that looked like it hadn't been opened since the 90s. No windows. Fluorescent light overhead that buzzed just loud enough to notice. The man behind the desk was big. 6'2", maybe 225. Iron gray hair cut military short. Broad face, small eyes, thick neck. He wore a clean work jacket with a reflective stripe across the chest, and his hands were folded on the desk in front of him. "Teddy Nichols," he said. "Not a question. A statement." "Yeah," I said. "Sit." I sat. He didn't introduce himself, didn't shake my hand, just looked at me for a long moment, then slid a plain white envelope across the desk. "5,000, he said. "Cash. Half now, half when you deliver." I stared at the envelope, didn't touch it. "Gary said you'd explain the job. I'm explaining it now." His voice was low and deliberate. Every word came out like he'd planned it ahead of time. "You'll pick up a sealed trailer in Duluth. Address is on the sheet. You'll drive it to an abandoned pulp mill outside Seney, Michigan. You'll arrive before sunrise. You'll leave the trailer in the loading bay and walk away." He slid a folded piece of paper across the desk next to the envelope. Old paper. Creased. The kind you'd find in the back of a file cabinet. "That's it?" I asked. "That's it." "What's in the trailer?" "Sealed." "Who's the client?" "North Span Salvage." "Never heard of it." "You don't need to." I looked at the envelope again. 5,000. 2,500 now. 2,500 on delivery. Enough to make the truck payment, cover the turbo, maybe get current on insurance. Enough to buy 3 more months. "Why me?" I asked. Tommy's expression didn't change. "Gary said you were reliable. Said you needed work. Said you don't ask too many questions." "I'm asking now." "And I'm answering. You pick up the trailer, you deliver it, you get paid. Simple job." It wasn't simple. I knew that. Nothing about this was simple. Tommy leaned back in his chair. "You want the work or not?" I thought about Karen Parsons and her message. Thought about the Kenworth sitting outside with a blown turbo and 2 months of missed payments. Thought about Aurora in Rockford, probably not thinking about me at all. Thought about being 44 and starting over with nothing. "Yeah," I said. "I want it." Tommy pushed the envelope and the paper toward me. I picked them up. The envelope was thick. The paper felt brittle. "Trailers at a yard off Grand Avenue in Duluth. Address is on the sheet. Gate code too. You'll leave tonight. You'll drive straight through. No stops except fuel. You'll arrive at the mill before sunrise. Understood?" "Understood." "Good." He stood up. I stood up. Still no handshake. He just looked at me with those small brown eyes and nodded once. "Don't open the trailer," he said. Then he walked past me and opened the door. I left. I got back in the truck and let the engine run for a minute. 5,000 in cash sat in the envelope on my passenger seat, half of it anyway. The turbo was still blown. The clock on the dash said 12:43. Duluth was about an hour south. Maybe less if I didn't hit traffic, which I wouldn't. Not this time of year, not midweek. I pulled out of the Love's lot and got back on Highway 2 heading west toward Superior, then caught I-535 south. The road was clear. Salt had done its job, just wet pavement and the occasional ice patch where the plow had missed. I told myself it was just another run. Weird client, weird delivery time, but the cash was real. I'd felt it. Tommy had been strange but not dangerous. Didn't threaten me, didn't even raise his voice. Just handed me an envelope and told me where to go. People paid extra for overnight runs all the time. For sealed freight, too. Sometimes it was legal trouble. Sometimes it was just companies being paranoid about their competitors. I'd hauled plenty of loads I never saw inside. That was normal. The fact that I couldn't afford to turn it down didn't make it a bad job, just made it necessary. That was what I kept telling myself anyway. The highway curved south through the hills, past the casino and the freight yards on the edge of Superior. My headlights caught the guardrails and the reflective markers every 10th post. Wind pushed against the cab from the west. Not hard, just steady. I checked the fuel gauge. 3/4. Plenty to get to Duluth and back out again. The envelope sat there in the passenger seat. I didn't touch it. Didn't need to. I knew what was in it. I was passing the Thompson Hill rest area when the dash clock caught my eye. 8:12 p.m. I looked at it for a second. Tried to remember what time it had been a minute ago. 8:11 maybe. That made sense. Then I glanced down at the odometer to check mileage, and when I looked back up, the clock still said 8:12. I watched it. Waited for it to roll over to 8:13. It didn't. Then it did. But it went backward. 8:12 again. I blinked. Rubbed my eyes with one hand and kept the wheel steady with the other. The clock stayed on 8:12 for another 3 or 4 seconds, then jumped forward to 8:13 like nothing had happened. Electrical trouble. Had to be. The truck was 15 years old and I'd been pushing it hard for the last 8 months. The alternator had gone out in October. The battery was original. Probably needed replacement. And now the turbo was blown, so who knew what else was starting to fail. A digital clock glitching wasn't even in the top 5 problems I had with this rig. I kept driving. 10 minutes later, the GPS started acting up. I had it mounted on the dash in a little suction cup holder Aurora had bought me 4 Christmases ago. Garmin, the trucking model. It knew bridge heights and weight limits and could route around low clearances. I'd plugged in the Duluth address before I left Superior. Just the street Tommy had written down. Grand Avenue. The GPS had locked on fine, showed me taking I-535 straight down into Duluth, then a left onto Grand, then the yard, about a mile in. Simple. But now the route was changing. The blue line started looping. It told me to take exit 13, then immediately told me to take exit 12, then 13 again, then 12. I was still on the highway. Hadn't taken either exit. But the GPS kept recalculating, showing me going in circles even though I was moving forward in a straight line. I glanced at the road. Still I-535. Still heading south. No curves, no exits coming up for another 2 miles. I tapped the GPS screen. It didn't respond. I turned it off, waited 5 seconds, turned it back on. Same thing. The blue line looped around exits 12 and 13 over and over, like I was stuck in some kind of routing glitch. Fine. I pulled out my phone. Full signal. 4 bars. LTE. I opened the Maps app and typed in the Duluth address again. The app loaded, showed my location, then froze. I watched the little blue dot just sit there, not moving, even though I was doing 60 down the highway. I closed the app, reopened it. Same thing. I tried the browser, opened Google, typed in Duluth Grand Avenue. The page wouldn't load, just spun and spun. I checked the signal again, still 4 bars. I set the phone down, probably a tower issue, or the cold. Phones did weird things in cold. Batteries drained fast, screens froze up, connections dropped. I didn't need the GPS anyway. I knew how to get to Duluth. Just stay on I-535 until it hit the city, then find Grand Avenue. I had the gate code written on the paper Tommy gave me. I'd be fine. Except the exits kept coming up wrong. I passed exit 13, then I passed exit 12. Then I passed exit 13 again. I slowed down, checked the signs, exit 13. Belknap Street. I knew that exit. I'd taken it before, years ago, hauling a load to a distribution center off Belknap. I kept driving. A minute later, exit 12, Boundary Avenue, then exit 13 again. I wasn't turning around. I wasn't looping back. The road was straight, the lanes were clear, and I was moving forward the whole time. But the exits kept repeating. My hands were tight on the wheel. I loosened them, flexed my fingers. This was wrong. Not electrical trouble. Not a glitch. Something else. I thought about pulling over. Maybe stopping at a gas station, getting out, clearing my head. But the job was on a clock. Tommy had said leave tonight, arrive before sunrise. I didn't have time to stop and figure out what was happening. I just needed to get off the highway. I took the next frontage road I saw. No sign. Just an exit ramp that curved off to the right. 2 lanes wide. Cracked asphalt with snow piled on the shoulders. The GPS didn't say anything. My phone was still frozen. I followed the ramp down and it flattened out into a straight road running parallel to the highway. No streetlights, just my headlights cutting through the dark. The road was empty. No other cars, no buildings. Just trees on both sides, bare and black against the sky. I kept the speed at 40, watched the road. Then I saw the cone. Orange, reflective stripe around the middle, sitting dead center in my lane about 100 feet ahead. I eased off the gas. The cone looked new, clean, not faded or cracked or covered in road salt. Just bright orange plastic sitting there like someone had just set it down. I glanced in the mirrors. Nothing behind me. Nothing on the shoulder. I looked ahead again. There was a man standing behind the cone. He had his back to me, arms at his sides, wearing a jacket with a reflective stripe across the shoulders. The same kind Tommy had worn. I didn't slow down. I don't know why. Maybe because stopping felt worse. Maybe because I wanted to see what would happen. The cone got closer. The man didn't move. I hit the cone doing 35. The impact was wrong. It should have been light, plastic. A little thunk and then it's gone, crushed under the tire or bounced off to the side. This was heavy, solid. The whole truck shuddered. I felt it in the wheel, in the seat, in my chest. I hit the brakes. Not hard, just enough to slow down. I checked the mirrors. The road behind me was empty. No cone, no man, just dark pavement and the faint glow of my taillights. I stopped the truck. Sat there for a second. Listened to the engine idle. My hands were shaking. Not much. Just enough that I noticed. I put the truck in park. Left it running. I didn't get out. Didn't want to see what I'd hit. Didn't want to know. This wasn't just another run. Tommy had known that. That was why he'd paid me half up front. Why he'd told me not to ask questions. Why he'd picked someone desperate enough not to care. I looked at the envelope on the passenger seat. $2,500. Enough to keep the truck another month. Maybe 2 if I stretched it. I put the truck back in drive. The yard was close now. Maybe 10 minutes. Maybe less. I didn't know what I was picking up. Didn't know what I'd hit. Didn't know if the man in the reflective jacket had been real or if I was losing it. But I knew I was going to finish the job. I pulled back onto the road and kept driving toward Duluth. The frontage road dumped me back onto a regular street with working traffic lights. Grand Avenue. I didn't need the GPS for that part. The yard was 2 blocks down on the left, exactly where the paper said it'd be. Chain link fence. Maybe 10 feet high with razor wire coiled along the top. Floodlights every 30 feet throwing hard white light across gravel and stacked containers. A small guard shack sat just inside the gate with one window glowing yellow. I pulled up to the keypad, rolled down my window, and punched in the 6-digit code Tommy had written down. The gate rolled open without a sound. I drove through slow, scanning the lot. 3 rows of containers on the right, some rusted, some with faded shipping logos I didn't recognize. On the left, a few box trailers parked in a line. And straight ahead, staged by itself near the back fence, a white refrigerated trailer already hooked to a dolly. Brand new 5th-wheel coupler, no rust, no road grime. The trailer itself looked older, maybe 10 years, but clean. White panels, no company markings, just a serial number stenciled in black near the rear doors. The doors had a padlock, also new. Brass finish catching the floodlight, no scratches on the shackle. I pulled up alongside and put the truck in park. Left it running. The blown turbo made the idle rough, a faint rattle under the hood that hadn't been there a week ago. The guard shack door opened. A woman stepped out. Thin build, maybe 5'8", wearing a security uniform that looked 2 sizes too big. Black hair tucked under a cap, pale skin, long nose. She didn't walk toward me, just stood there by the shack with her hands in her coat pockets. I waited. She didn't move. I shut off the engine and climbed down. My boots hit gravel and the cold went straight through my jeans. The wind had died down, but the air still had teeth. She watched me walk over. Didn't say anything when I stopped a few feet away. "I'm here for the trailer," I said. She nodded once, pulled one hand out of her pocket and pointed toward the shack. I looked. There was a piece of paper taped to the outside of the window. Old sheet folded twice with clear packing tape holding it against the glass. "That's for you," she said. Flat voice. No accent I could place. I walked over and pulled it down. The tape came off easy, leaving a small square of residue on the glass. The paper felt soft, creased like it had been folded and unfolded a bunch of times before someone decided to tape it up. I unfolded it under the shack's exterior light. Typed, single-spaced, no header, no logo, just a list. Operational guidelines. Read before departure. 1. Do not open or inspect trailer contents under any circumstances. 2. If an orange cone appears in your lane, do not swerve. Maintain speed and proceed through the obstruction. 3. If knocking sounds occur from the trailer, tune radio to 90.7 FM immediately. Do not turn off the radio until knocking ceases. 4. Do not stop on M28 between Munising and Seney for any reason, including road obstructions, vehicle trouble, or emergency signals. 5. Upon arrival at the Seney Mill gate, shut off engine and remain in the cab. Wait for 3 audible horn sounds before exiting the vehicle. 6. Failure to comply with these guidelines will void your contract and payment. I read it twice. The woman stood a few feet away, watching, not moving, not speaking, just watching. "This a joke?" I asked. She didn't answer. I looked back at the paper. The type was clean, printed on an inkjet probably. Someone had gone through the trouble of writing this out, printing it, folding it up, and taping it to a guard shack window in a Duluth freight yard at night. The cone thing, Rule 2. I'd already hit one. Felt it shudder through the frame, heavy and wrong. Saw the man standing behind it, then saw nothing in the mirror. My hands were steady holding the paper, but my chest felt tight. "You read it?" the woman asked. "Yeah." "All of it?" "Yeah." She nodded. Pulled a small flashlight from her coat and clicked it on, aiming the beam at the trailer. "It's ready. Dolly's set, kingpin's locked, glad hands are connected. Reefer's off, but it's charged." I folded the paper and stuck it in my jacket pocket. "I need to sign anything?" "No." "Paperwork?" "No." "BOL?" "No." She turned off the flashlight and put it back in her pocket, looked at me with gray eyes that didn't blink much. "You good to go?" I thought about the envelope in my truck. $2,500 bills in there, rubber banded in stacks of 500. Enough to keep the Kenworth another month, maybe 2. Enough to get the turbo fixed and the insurance current. I thought about Karen Parsons and her voicemail. Repossession proceedings will begin if payment is not received by end of business Friday. 3 days. I looked at the trailer. White panels, clean welds, new padlock. "Yeah," I said. "I'm good." She stepped back toward the shack without another word. I walked back to my truck, climbed in, and started the engine. The cab was still warm. I pulled forward slow, lining up the fifth wheel, and backed under the trailer. Felt the kingpin lock in. I set the parking brake, climbed back out, and checked the connection by hand. Solid. Hooked up the glad hands for the airlines, tested the trailer brakes. Everything held. The reefer unit was silent. I checked the fuel, 3/4 full. Temperature gauge read 38 degrees inside the box. I didn't try the doors. The woman was back inside the shack now, visible through the yellow window. She was looking down at something, maybe a clipboard, maybe a phone. I got back in the cab, released the brakes, and rolled toward the gate. It was already open. I drove through and heard it slide shut behind me. Grand Avenue was empty. I turned right, heading east, and merged onto I-35 North within 2 minutes. The highway was clear. No other trucks, just a few cars spaced out in the right lane doing 60. I tried to write the rules off as intimidation, scare tactics, someone's idea of keeping drivers compliant, making sure they didn't get curious about the cargo or decide to detour somewhere unauthorized. But I kept seeing the cone, kept feeling the impact, the way it didn't crumple or bounce, the way it hit solid, the way the man standing behind it just disappeared. I pulled the folded paper out of my pocket at the next straightaway and set it on the passenger seat next to the envelope. Didn't read it again. Didn't need to. I'd memorized it already. The reefer kicked on about 20 minutes later. Low hum, steady and mechanical. I checked the mirror. White trailer, running lights on, no steam from the vents. Temperature holding. Snow started around Duluth's northern edge. Not heavy, just a light drift coming down in the headlights. The road was clear, but the shoulders had that packed-down look from plows running earlier. I passed the exit for 2 harbors and kept going. The fuel gauge read just under 3/4. I'd need to stop once, maybe twice depending on how the turbo held up. The blown bearing was eating efficiency, dragging my MPG down from 6 to maybe 4.5. I figured I could make it to Ironwood on what I had. Maybe push through to Wakefield if the numbers held. After that, I'd need fuel regardless. The highway curved northeast, following the lake. I couldn't see the water, but I knew it was out there, black and frozen along the edges. Superior in January. I'd driven this route maybe 30 times over the years, hauling produce or frozen goods to UP distribution points. Never at night. Never with a trailer I wasn't allowed to open. The radio was off. I didn't turn it on. Rule 3 kept sitting in my head. The tapping started around Wakefield. 3 knocks, slow, measured. Not random rattling or cargo shifting. 3 distinct taps from inside the trailer, spaced maybe 2 seconds apart. I checked the mirror. The white box sat there under the running lights, same as it had for the past hour. Steam rose from the reefer vents now. The unit was working, keeping whatever was inside at 38 degrees. The taps came again. Same rhythm. 1, 2, 3. I pulled the instruction sheet off the passenger seat. My hand wasn't shaking, but it wasn't steady either. Rule 3. If knocking sounds occur from trailer tune radio to 90.7 FM immediately and do not turn off until knocking ceases. The radio had been off since Duluth. I switched it on and turned the dial. Static first, then a country station, then more static. I found 90.7 and stopped. I expected music. Maybe some kind of interference signal or white noise. What I got was a woman's voice, calm and even, reading numbers. 7, 7392481. No explanation, no station ID, just numbers in groups of 7. Read at the same steady pace. The woman's voice had no accent I could place. She sounded young, maybe 30. She didn't pause between number groups, just kept going. 6521937. The tapping stopped. I kept my eyes on the road and my right hand on the wheel. The highway curved northeast through forest on both sides. No other vehicles in sight. The woman kept reading. 4836215. Then I heard the reefer unit change pitch. The hum I'd been listening to for the past hour dropped lower, strained, uneven, not dying exactly, just working harder than it should have been. The temperature gauge still read 38 when I checked the monitor on the dash. Some of the newer refrigerated trailers had those, sent telemetry straight to the cab. This one did. I turned my attention back to the road and left the radio alone. The woman kept reading numbers. The reefer kept running with that new, lower tone. I didn't look in the mirrors as much after that. Just watched the center line and the edge of the pavement where the plow had left a ridge of packed snow. The fuel gauge read half. I'd passed Ironwood 20 minutes back without stopping. Wakefield was behind me now, too. Next town of any size would be Watersmeet, then nothing until I hit US 2 and turned east toward Manistique. 3729146. I drove. The sky cleared somewhere past Watersmeet. Clouds thinned, and I could see stars through the windshield, cold and sharp. The woman on the radio had stopped reading numbers maybe 10 minutes prior. Now it was just static, low and constant. I didn't turn it off. Rule 3 said not to turn it off until the knocking ceased, and I wasn't sure the knocking had ceased or just paused. I merged onto US 2 heading east, and the road opened up. 2 lanes, recently plowed, with snowbanks on both shoulders. The forest pulled back a little here. I passed a closed gas station, then a bar with 3 trucks in the lot, then nothing. I started thinking maybe the rules were just scare tactics, anti-theft theater, a way to keep drivers from getting curious about the cargo or making unauthorized stops. Tommy had the look of someone who'd done security work. Private military, maybe. The kind of guy who'd write up a list of rules designed to intimidate. The cone had been real. I'd felt the impact, but I'd been tired and the GPS had been malfunctioning, and maybe I'd hit a chunk of ice or road debris that just happened to be sitting there. The man in the reflective jacket could have been a shadow or a trick of the headlights. Then I passed the billboard. It was on the right side of the highway, sun-faded and peeling. Big letters advertising pasties and fireworks with a cartoon mascot. Some kind of bear or badger holding a sparkler. There was a bullet hole through the mascot's smile. Clean, round hole, probably a rifle shot. I'd seen that billboard before. Years ago, hauling frozen chicken to a distributor in Escanaba. It had been daytime then, and the bullet hole had made me smirk because it was such a UP thing. Shooting road signs for entertainment. I kept driving. The odometer ticked forward. 23 miles, 24, 25. Then I saw the billboard again. Same side of the highway. Same faded colors. Same bullet hole in the same spot, right through the mascot's smile. I checked the odometer. It was still climbing. 26 miles. 27. The numbers moved forward like they were supposed to. But the billboard had repeated. I looked for the mile markers. The green reflective signs the DOT put up every mile, usually on the right shoulder. I spotted one coming up and slowed to 40 to read it. Mile marker 312. Black smear on its face, probably where someone had thrown a slushie or spilled coffee out their window. I memorized it, the number and the smear. 10 minutes later, I passed mile marker 312 again. Same black smear. Same position on the right shoulder. The odometer kept climbing. 31 miles. 32. But the markers were looping. I didn't stop. Rule 4 said not to stop on M28 between Munising and Seney for any reason, but I was on US 2, not M28. Still, I wasn't stopping. I pulled out the instruction sheet again at the next straightaway and studied it while keeping one eye on the road. The rules didn't say anything about repeating mile markers or looping highway sections. Just the cone, the knocking, the no-stops policy, and the mill gate procedure. The fuel gauge read just above a quarter tank. I'd need to stop for diesel soon, but not here. Not while the road was doing this. I started looking for county roads. Anything that would break the pattern. The map in my head said there should be turnoffs between here and Manistee. Small routes that connected to logging roads or led to lake access points. I'd never taken them, but I'd seen the signs. The first one appeared maybe 5 miles later, County Road 441, unmarked except for a small green sign. I slowed and took the turn. The road was narrower, 2 lanes but barely, with trees pressing close on both sides. No streetlights, no other vehicles. I kept my speed at 35 and watched for ice. It worked. I think it worked. The road ran straight for 2 miles, then curved south, then east again. I didn't see any repeating landmarks. No billboards, no mile markers. Just trees and snowbanks and the occasional driveway leading to a cabin I couldn't see. I started building a route in my head. County roads connecting to other county roads, working my way east and slightly north until I hit M28, which would take me straight to Seney. It'd add time, maybe an hour, but I'd still make it before sunrise. The job said straight through with no stops except fuel, but it didn't say I had to stay on US 2. The road curved left, then right. I followed it, checking the mirrors every 10 seconds. The reefer was still running with that lower strain tone, but the temperature held at 38. Then the road bent again and I saw the cone, orange, reflective stripe, sitting in the center of my lane about 70 feet ahead. I slowed without meaning to. The truck dropped from 35 to 20 in the space of maybe 3 seconds. My foot hovered over the brake. Rule 2. If an orange cone appears in lane, do not swerve and maintain speed through obstruction. But this wasn't the highway. This was a county road in the middle of nowhere, and the cone was right there, and I had time to stop or go around it. I looked in the mirror. The road behind me was empty. I looked ahead. The cone sat there, clean and new, exactly like the first one. My hands tightened on the wheel. This wasn't about the cargo anymore, or the money, or keeping the truck. This was a test, or a trap, or something I didn't have a name for. And the decision I made here mattered more than I'd understood when Tommy slid that envelope across the desk. I turned the wheel right, just instinct. Get around the obstacle, keep moving. The wheel fought me. That's the only way I can describe it. I cranked right and the truck didn't respond. The tires felt locked in place, stuck in invisible ruts, forcing me straight ahead. I pulled harder, shoulders tensing, and the wheel gave maybe half an inch before catching again. My foot hovered over the brake. 70 feet became 60, then 50, and that's when the headlights caught it. A cable. Stretched across the road at windshield height, running tree to tree. Steel, probably, maybe a quarter-inch thick. Both ends disappeared into the dark where the pines crowded the shoulder. The cone sat directly beneath it, marking the center point. If I'd swerved. If the wheel had turned. The cable would have hit the windshield at 35 miles per hour. Maybe shattered the glass. Maybe caught me across the throat through the opening. I didn't know. I didn't want to know. I yanked the wheel back left, overcorrecting, aiming dead center at the cone. The impact felt like hitting a concrete pylon. The entire truck stopped. Not slowed. Stopped. The seatbelt locked across my chest and yanked me back into the seat hard enough that my ribs compressed and the air punched out of my lungs. My hands stayed locked on the wheel. The trailer lurched forward behind me and I felt the whole rig shudder, the fifth wheel groaning, glad hands straining. The engine didn't stall, but it dropped to idle, rattling worse than before. I sat there, chest aching where the belt had caught me, breathing shallow. The cone stood upright in front of the bumper. Hadn't moved. Hadn't crumpled or bounced or rolled away. Just stood there, clean and orange with that reflective stripe catching my headlights. Then it tipped over, on its own. No wind, no contact. It just fell sideways to the left, slow and deliberate, and landed in the gravel with a soft scrape. The truck started rolling forward. I hadn't touched the gas. The brake was still partially engaged. But the Kenworth moved anyway, crawling at maybe 2 miles per hour, tires crunching over the spot where the cone had been. I checked the mirrors. Behind me, the cable went slack. Both ends dropped into the ditch on either side of the road, disappearing into the snow and dead grass. I pressed the brake all the way down. The truck stopped. My hands were shaking again. Worse this time. I looked at the paper on the passenger seat. Rule 2. If an orange cone appears in your lane, do not swerve. Maintain speed through obstruction. Maintain speed, not slow down, not stop. Drive straight through at 35 miles per hour and let whatever happens happen. I'd slowed to maybe 10 before impact, maybe less. And the cone had still felt solid enough to stop a 15-ton rig. I put the truck in reverse, backed up 20 feet, then pulled forward again and kept going. The county road continued east. I didn't see the cable anymore. Didn't see the cone. Just trees and darkness in the white line down the center of the pavement. My chest hurt. Not bad. Just a dull ache where the belt had locked. I'd had worse. Fender bender outside Rockford 2 years back. Some kid in a Civic who didn't check his mirror. That had left bruises for a week. This would probably do the same. I drove for another 10 minutes, took the next county road north, then merged back onto US 2 heading east. The reefer was still running, temperature still read 38. The static from 90.7 FM kept playing through the cab, low and constant. I didn't turn it off. The highway felt normal again. I passed a rest area, dark and closed for the season. Passed a billboard for a casino in St. Ignace. The mile markers climbed in order. 41, 42, 43. No loops, no repeats. I started treating every cone like a wall. That was it. New rule. Personal rule. If I saw orange with a reflective stripe, I aimed straight for it and didn't slow down. Didn't matter if it made sense. Didn't matter if my brain screamed at me to swerve. The rules said maintain speed, and I'd seen what happened when you didn't. Past Newberry, my phone buzzed. I glanced down. The screen showed 2 bars of signal, LTE. A missed call notification from a number I didn't recognize, time-stamped 40 minutes ago. The Maps app icon sat in the corner, functional. I picked it up, unlocked it, opened Maps. The blue dot appeared immediately, tracking my position on US 2 heading east towards Seney. No freezing, no glitches. It moved smoothly as I drove, the route updating in real time. I checked the GPS mounted on the dash. It showed the same thing, 53 miles to destination. Estimated arrival in 1 hour and 12 minutes. The dashboard clock read 3:47 a.m. I watched it for 30 seconds. It advanced to 3:48. Everything worked. I wanted to believe it was over, that whatever had happened between Superior and here had burned itself out, and now I was just a guy hauling a refrigerated trailer across Michigan in the middle of the night. Normal job. Normal route. The rules were just scare tactics. The cone was some kind of mechanical trick, and I'd get to Seney, drop the trailer, collect the other 2,500 and drive home. I wanted to believe that. Then the knocking started again. Harder this time. Not 3 measured taps. This was a steady rhythm. Bang, 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 pause, bang, 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 pause. Like someone hitting the inside of the trailer with a wrench or a fist. The sound came through clearly over the engine noise and the static from the radio. I checked the mirror. The trailer looked the same. White panels, running lights on. No movement. Bang, bang, bang. I reached for the radio and turned the dial back to 90.7 FM. It was already there. The static cut out. Silence. No woman reading numbers, no white noise. Just dead air, the kind you get when a station's transmitter goes offline. I kept my eyes on the road. The highway stretched straight ahead, empty. No other vehicles, no lights except my own. Then a voice came through the speakers, male, older, calm. "You're doing fine, Teddy." I didn't touch the radio, didn't move. My foot stayed steady on the gas. "You've followed the rules," the voice continued. "That's good. That's why we chose you." The knocking stopped. "Northspan Salvage doesn't recover equipment," the voice said. "We recover what remains after people disappear. What's left behind. What doesn't fit anywhere else." I glanced at the radio. The frequency still showed 90.7. The signal strength indicator didn't move. "The trailer you're hauling contains recovered property from 6 separate incidents across Minnesota and Wisconsin. None of it wants to stay sealed. That's why we need drivers who'll follow instructions." My hands tightened on the wheel. "You were selected because you're desperate. Because you need the money. Because when Gary called, you didn't ask what the job was, you just asked when." The highway curved slightly left. I followed it. "The rules aren't safety tips, Teddy, they're delivery instructions. If you'd swerved around that cone, the cable would have done its job. If you'd ignored the knocking, what's inside would have gotten out. If you stop on M28, you won't reach Seney." The voice paused. "You've got 40 miles left. Stay en route. Follow the rules. You'll get your money." The frequency went to static again. I drove. The rules weren't safety tips. They were delivery instructions. That made sense now. All of it. The cone that felt solid. The cable stretched at neck height. The woman reading numbers that stopped the knocking. None of it was random. None of it was intimidation. It was procedure. And I'd been chosen because I was desperate enough not to refuse. Because Karen Parsons had left that voicemail. Because my turbo was blown and my truck payment was 2 months overdue and I had 3 days before repossession. Tommy knew that. Gary knew that. They'd picked me the same way you'd pick a tool. Right size, right job. Desperate enough not to ask questions. I looked at the envelope on the passenger seat. $2,500 bills. Enough to keep the Kenworth 1 more month. Maybe 2. The dash clock read 4:03 a.m. Seney was 37 miles ahead. I kept driving. M28 curved northeast through thick pines with shoulders barely wide enough for a breakdown. The road was empty except for me. No taillights ahead, no headlights behind. Just dark trees and the white line disappearing under my bumper. I figured I had maybe 20 miles left, maybe less. That's when I saw the flashers. Red and amber strobing through the trees ahead, lighting up the pines in bursts. I slowed from 60 to 50, then 40. The road bent left, and there it was. A semi jackknifed across both lanes, cab angled into the ditch on the right, trailer blocking everything except maybe 2 feet of shoulder on the left side. Hazard triangles were laid out behind it. Perfect spacing, exactly how you're supposed to set them up. 1 at 10 feet, 1 at 100, 1 at 200, all 3 glowing orange in my headlights. A man stood beside the cab, waving both arms over his head. I put my foot on the brake. Then I saw the cones. Orange, clean, reflective stripes catching my headlights. 6 of them lined up along the shoulder, leading around the left side of the jackknife trailer. They looked like breadcrumbs. Like someone wanted me to follow a specific path. My chest tightened where the seatbelt had locked earlier. I looked at the waving man again. He didn't stop. Just kept waving, arms going up and down in the same rhythm. No variation, no pause. Not even to see if I was slowing down. Rule 4 came back. Do not stop on M28 between Munising and Seney for any reason. I checked the gap on the left, maybe 3 feet between the jackknife trailer and the trees. Tight, real tight for a rig pulling a 40-foot box, but possible. The man kept waving. I pressed the gas and aimed for the gap. The passenger mirror clipped a pine branch and snapped it off with a crack I heard through the glass. The trailer's left side scraped against the jackknifed rig, metal on metal, a high grinding screech that went on for maybe 4 seconds. My hands locked on the wheel. The Kenworth lurched right, then straightened. The reefer rocked behind me, but the glad hands held. I cleared the wreck and checked my mirrors. The waving man was still waving. Same motion, same speed. He didn't turn to watch me go. Didn't stop. Just kept his arms moving up and down in the empty road. The jackknifed cab sat packed with snow. Not fresh snow, old snow, layered and settled like it had been sitting there for weeks, maybe longer. The windshield was white. The hood was white. Snow had drifted up against the passenger door and halfway up the window. Nobody had been in that cab for a long time. I drove faster. The hazard triangles disappeared behind me. The flashers faded. The road straightened out and the trees thinned slightly, and I kept the gas down, doing 70 in a 60 zone with a blown turbo and a reefer full of something I didn't want to think about. The static from 90.7 FM kept playing through the cab. I didn't turn it off. I hit Sini at 4:41 in the morning. The town was dark. No streetlights, no gas stations, nothing open. Just a few houses set back from the road and a blinking yellow light at the only intersection. The mill was 2 miles past town on the left. I'd passed it years ago on a daytime run and remembered the chain link fence and the collapsed smokestack, but I'd never stopped. Never had a reason to. The outer gate was open. I slowed and turned in, tires crunching over gravel and frozen mud. The fence ran along both sides of the access road, 10 feet high with razor wire coiled along the top. Floodlights were mounted every 30 feet, but only half of them worked. The ones that did cast long shadows across the yard. The road led straight for maybe 200 feet, then split. Left toward the main buildings, concrete shells with broken windows and missing roof panels. Right toward a loading area with rusted truck bays and a small gatehouse. I went right. The inner gate was closed. It was newer than the outer fence, maybe 8 feet tall with a keypad mounted on a steel post and a camera housing pointed down at the driver's window. I stopped 20 feet back and put the truck in park. Rule 5. At Sini Mill Gate, shut off engine, remain in cab, and wait for 3 horn sounds before exiting. I shut off the engine. The Kenworth ticked and settled. The reefer kept running behind me, that same strained hum it had been making since the knocking started. The static from 90.7 FM cut out when the ignition died. I sat there. The gatehouse was dark. No lights inside, no movement. The loading bays beyond the gate were empty. Just concrete pads with rusted dock plates and a few pallets rotting in the corners. I checked the clock on the dash out of habit, but it was dead without the engine running. 30 seconds passed. Maybe a minute. Then the horn sounded. One long blast, deep and flat, coming from somewhere past the gate. Not a truck horn, something bigger. It echoed off the concrete buildings and faded into the trees. I waited. The second horn came maybe 10 seconds later. Same tone, same length. I counted to 15 in my head. My hand was already on the door handle. The third horn sounded. But it didn't come from the loading bay. It came from inside the trailer. I sat there with my hand frozen on the handle. The horn blast had been muffled but clear, same deep tone as the first two. It had come from directly behind me, through the cab wall, from inside the sealed reefer box I'd been hauling for the last 6 hours. I looked at the envelope on the passenger seat. $2,500 bills, half payment. The other half was supposed to come after delivery. I thought about Karen Parsons and her voicemail. 3 days to pay or lose the truck. I thought about the waving man on M28 who didn't stop waving. The cone that felt solid. The cable stretched across the county road. The voice on 90.7 FM that knew my name. I thought about what the voice had said. The trailer contains recovered property from 6 separate incidents. None of it wants to stay sealed. The gate was still closed. The loading bay was still dark. I turned the key and started the engine. The reefer kicked back on behind me. I put the Kenworth in reverse and backed up 30 feet, then swung wide to turn around in the access road. The trailer followed, tires crunching over gravel. I didn't go through the gate. I stopped near the outer fence, put the truck in park again, and shut it off. Then I grabbed the tire iron from behind the seat and the emergency road flare kit from the storage compartment under the bunk. The kit had 6 flares. I took 2. The air outside was cold enough to hurt, maybe 10 below, maybe worse. My breath came out in clouds that hung in the floodlight glow. I walked back to the trailer with the tire iron in one hand and both flares in the other. My boots crunched loud on the gravel. The reefer unit was running full blast, louder than it should have been, and the temperature gauge on the side panel still read 38 degrees. The brass padlock was still locked. The serial number was still stenciled in black near the doors. I didn't have a key, didn't want one. I knelt down and looked at the rubber seal running along the bottom edge of the doors. It was thick, industrial grade, designed to keep cold in and moisture out. I twisted the cap off the first flare and struck it. Red flame hissed to life, bright enough to make me squint. The heat hit my face immediately. I held it close to the seal and pushed the burning end into the rubber. It resisted for maybe 2 seconds. Then the flame started melting through. Smoke curled up, thick and black and chemical. I kept pushing. The flare sank deeper, burning a hole the size of a quarter through the seal and into the gap between the doors. Something moved inside the trailer. Not a knock, not a thump, a scrape, long and deliberate, like something heavy being dragged across the floor from the front of the box toward the back. I shoved the flare in as far as it would go and left it there, wedged into the seal. Then I ran back to the cab, climbed in, and started the engine. The reefer screamed. Not the motor. Something else. A high metallic shriek that didn't sound mechanical. Didn't sound like anything I'd heard before. It went on for maybe 3 seconds, then cut off completely. The temperature gauge dropped from 38 to 0 in the time it took me to look at it. I put the truck in gear and felt the trailer shift behind me. Not the weight of the load settling. Something else. A ripple. A lurch. Like the contents had just caught fire. Smoke started pouring out of the seal where I'd shoved the flare. Thick. Greasy. Dark gray, almost black, rolling along the seams of the doors and curling up toward the roof. The smell hit me through the closed cab windows. Burning plastic and something worse underneath. Something organic. The flames came next. They rolled along the seams, low and fast, spreading from the bottom seal to the sides and top like liquid fire. The white panels started blistering. The paint bubbled and peeled. Something slammed against the doors from inside, hard enough to rock the whole trailer. The glad hands strained. The fifth wheel groaned. The reefer unit gave one last metallic scream and died completely. I dragged the truck forward, felt the trailer resist, then lurch into motion behind me. The tires bit into gravel, and I pulled it toward the outer gate, picking up speed, doing maybe 15 miles per hour when the trailer's left side clipped the gate post and tore a 3-foot section of chain link loose. The fence links screamed and snapped. I kept going. The outer fence was wider. I angled the trailer through, felt it scrape along the right side, kept the gas down. Metal screamed. Something in the trailer slammed against the doors again, harder this time, and I heard the padlock rattle but hold. I cleared the gate and pulled out onto the access road, then swung the truck left and stopped. The trailer sat at an angle across both lanes, blocking the right lane completely and halfway into the left. Flames crawled across the roof now, spreading fast, and smoke poured out of every seam. I unhooked the glad hands and pulled the fifth wheel release. The trailer dropped onto its landing gear with a heavy thud. I pulled forward. felt the Kenworth go light without the weight behind it, and drove. In the mirror, I watched the fire grow. The flames rose higher, orange and red against the black sky, and the smoke column twisted up into the pines. The trailer doors buckled. One of them blew open. Not all the way, just halfway, enough to see inside. Dark shapes spilled out into the snow. They didn't walk, didn't run. They collapsed, fell forward and hit the ground and twitched without coordination, limbs jerking in wrong directions like something trying to remember how a body works. There were maybe 4 of them, maybe 5, hard to tell in the firelight and smoke. They didn't get up, didn't follow. I kept driving. The road stopped looping. I don't know when exactly. Somewhere between Seney and Newberry, the mile markers started climbing in order and stayed that way. My phone showed 4 bars and LTE. The GPS worked. The dashboard clock read 5:32 a.m. and advanced normally. The highway was just a highway again. I hit the Loves in Superior a little after sunrise. The lot was half full. A few trucks idling near the fuel islands, a couple cars parked by the building. Everything looked normal, ordinary. I parked in the back row and sat there for maybe 10 minutes, watching the sky turn pink over the lake. Then I took the envelope from the passenger seat, counted out enough to cover my overdue insurance, and walked inside to use the phone. The dispatcher's name was Aidan Griffith. I'd worked with him before, maybe 3 years back on a Minnesota run. He answered on the second ring. "Yeah, this is Aidan." "It's Teddy Nichols. I need you to connect me to Michigan authorities." He paused. "What kind of authorities?" "State police, maybe county sheriff, whoever handles Seney." "What happened?" "There's a trailer on fire outside an old pulp mill off M28. You're going to want to send someone." Aidan was quiet for maybe 3 seconds, then, "You okay?" "Yeah." "You want me to log this as an accident report?" "No. Log it as a tip. Anonymous if you can." "Can't do anonymous if you're calling from a logged line, Teddy." "Then just log it. I'll give you the details." I told him about the mill location, told him about Northspan Salvage, gave him Gary Hall's name and number, told him about the trailer rules, all 6 of them, word for word. Aidan didn't interrupt. When I finished, he said, "You got proof of any of this?" "No." "You got the rules sheet?" I looked down at the folded paper in my hand. "No." "Okay, I'll pass it along. Might take a few hours." "That's fine." "Teddy?" "Yeah." "You sure you're okay?" "Yeah," I said. "I'm good." 2 days later, I heard about the fire. It made the local news out of Marquette. Chemical fire, cause unknown, investigators couldn't explain the residue or the smell. No casualties reported, no injuries. The mill property was abandoned, no owner on record. Gary Hall vanished the same morning. His apartment in Duluth was empty. His phone went straight to voicemail. The freight company he'd brokered through said he hadn't checked in since Monday. Nobody ever found him. I kept the truck, paid the turbo repair with what was left of the Northspan cash. Got current on insurance, made my payment to First Bank of Illinois with 2 days to spare. Karen Parsons called the following week to confirm receipt. She didn't mention repossession again. I've been running steady since then, mostly regional stuff. Chicago to Minneapolis, Milwaukee to Fargo, regular freight, produce, frozen goods, dry cargo. Nothing I can't open. Nothing I can't verify. My chest still hurts sometimes where the seatbelt locked, mostly when the weather changes or I sleep wrong. Just a dull ache, nothing serious. I don't take high-paying mystery jobs anymore. Don't answer calls from brokers I don't know. If someone mentions Northspan Salvage, I hang up. And I don't drive M28 at night. Not ever again.